Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tape Crusaders, the beginning of a new era. X-Men is here. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen, as always I'm joined by
Joshua Merville. Yeah, is this our first 2000 movie?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah?
I think it is, yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
The
A whole new
beginning of
millennium.
Millennium, yes it is. We're joined by Meteor co-owner Champ Ian.
Hi.
Woo! All right.
Yeah.
You like the year 2000?
It was a good year for, I don't know, millennial.
For
I don't
Y2K
remember.
bugs?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Guess
New Year's
what?
glasses.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we have a very, very special guest. This is our X-Men aficionado.
You never said he
Brent.
was special.
Huh?
You never said he was very special.
Oh, he's very special.
I like my X-Men.
Yes.
I do.
Wow.
It's
Yes.
Harvey Brent, as you may recall.
That's right, Harvey Brent. That's your superhero name. I forgot about that.
That's my disguise,
Yeah,
right?
I blew it.
That's good.
Okay, so one of the things, so this is your first guest appearance on this particular show, but one of the things we always talk about is our experience with seeing the movie the first time. Okay?
Okay.
So for example, when this movie came out, it was like the
2000. The year 2000.
the year 2000, like Ian said, he's a big fan. This is the third big superhero franchise that was adapted to the big screen for me after Superman and Batman, right? Like, I didn't care about Steel. I didn't care about Blade. I didn't care about Doc Savage. I cared about X-Men. So this was a huge deal to me. So I saw it opening night, and I saw it many other times in the theater, and I saw it to the point that it was practically memorized. So, Brent, what was your experience? Just talk about seeing the movie.
I actually just told the story to Josh earlier that I saw it when I was, without dating myself, I was 8, maybe 9. Went into the theaters. I did not see it opening night. I saw it the following weekend. And as a young kid with not a lot of experience in how marketing informs what to expect in a movie, and being a massive fan of the 90s cartoon, I just kept hoping Gambit would show up.
Of course.
The entire
Of
film,
course.
even in the climax, and like he'll be here any second, right?
Yeah.
You know, just no concept of reality, you know, as
Sure.
a kid, right? So that was I remember feeling disappointed, but for the wrong reasons. I'm disappointed now too, but
For different reasons. For
different
different
reasons.
reasons.
Yeah.
I hear you though, and we'll talk about your reasons because I have similar reasons. But Ian, I know you haven't seen it. We're gonna save you for last.
Okay.
Josh,
Oh,
you've seen this film
X-Men?
before, right?
I've seen it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's your first time?
Yeah.
First time.
Oh.
Josh. First, just to give people a perspective, what year were you born?
95. So I was
95.
5. I did not watch this in theaters
Okay.
when it came out, but I remember watching it. I don't remember when or how old I was, but I remember loving it. I'm assuming it was around the time that X2
Okay,
or
sure,
X3
sure.
came out. Like I was kind of watching them on VHS or DVD or something. But I loved it as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just say, Ian, one thing. You have to go in knowing X-Men was the biggest selling comic of the 80s. It was the biggest selling comic of the 90s. Then
Okay.
it was a big cartoon that was #1 among kids.
Yeah.
Then the movie came out,
Yeah.
and then Ian did not go see it.
No, I didn't go see it. I don't know if it was even on my radar.
Okay.
To be honest, and I don't know why it wouldn't have been.
Okay.
Because it seems to me like it probably had some hype behind it.
Sure. A little bit of hype.
You must not have been to like a McDonald's or a Burger King at the time either.
Well, if I was or not,
Yeah.
I was not the target audience, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah, this was my first time seeing it,
Wow.
and I don't know, the impression that I get from this movie, like I was very optimistic the first couple of minutes because it looked slick and well done and well produced, and I noticed right away that the sound was exceptional, and I was kind of blown away by that a little bit.
The music was good.
Yeah,
The music was good.
Yeah.
Really good.
But as the movie kind of went on, it kind of reminded me of like you're downtown and you see a Ferrari, but you get closer and you realize that it's actually a kit car.
Okay.
And it kind of looks nice on the surface, but you know there's a Fiero underneath there. And it's really not worth as much as the person driving it would maybe like you to think. So
Okay, you know who kind of agrees with you? M. Night Shyamalan. You know him?
Yeah.
Director of Sixth Sense?
Yeah.
He loved the first 20 minutes or so. And I remember reading that in a magazine
What?
25 years
That's
ago.
a very specific take.
Yeah. I know. It's like I have weird memory about I don't remember like my own phone number, but I remember that. But, okay, I'm going to give you my rough take on this film, okay? The problems. Okay, I love the fact that they open with the Holocaust. Now we should point out. Okay, this is the year 2000. We've come off of Tim Burton's Batman, and then we've come off of Blade. So we're done with crazy comic book cartoon spectacle. We've gone to a little bit of Blade, which is still a little bit of spectacle. It's a little bit of glitz.
A lot of spectacle.
A lot
Blade.
of spectacle. This movie has almost no spectacle, but it tries to be realistic, which I respect it for. So they start off on the Holocaust. And so you're like, wow, this is kind of like ambitious, even though they don't quite pull it off.
And I think I think the reason why that scene works for me so well is that I think it sets up everything else that's going on in the movie without having to like
hit you over the head.
Yeah, we have that quick meeting or whatever where like the council or the government's talking about mutants, and then they don't have to like.
Okay, I'm just gonna say though that I think that it's like in my brain I'm rating these scenes. It's like Holocaust, pretty good. Meeting in the government thing, pretty good. Congress. Then we get to the Rogue scene. And this is where I think the problem begins for me, okay? And I'll tell you why. Rogue is telling her boyfriend about a trip she's planning to Canada. So this is what we call exposition. Why is she planning this trip? Why is she telling him about it? Okay, fine. That's fine. But the movie's focusing on that, so it must be important. But then she absorbs her boyfriend's personality, injures him, freaks out, and then we cut to the next scene, and then it's Logan, Wolverine, in this pit or whatever, in this bar in northern, what is it, Alberta?
Yeah.
And then Rogue is there. If the movie was better, she would have not planned that trip. She would have had that injury, and then she would have gone to Canada because of what happened to her. She would have gone, oh, wait a minute, there's something wrong with me. I'm going to look for other people that have the same problem I do. Oh, I heard about this guy in Canada who has this problem. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go to see what he's up to. But instead, she just ends up on this random trip in northern. I'm going to go vacation in northern Alberta.
It's explained a little.
Like
she's telling her boyfriend she's actually going to Alaska.
Sure, okay.
But she has to go through the Rockies and through Alberta, and she hitches a ride to a place that she thinks is something that it isn't. And it turns out that this city is actually this little tiny dinky town.
Little town.
But you're still right. It's a dumb reason for her to end up there.
Right.
It's lazy.
Coincidentally, run into this other mutant. And then
because the whole idea that this bar is just doing weird cage matches.
I know. and it's like it's a stab at something, trying to be gritty, trying to be realistic. But then they have the little fight, and then it cuts to like, oh, later on, and then they're all like cleaning up and counting the money, and then the guy comes over and he's like, hey, you owe me money. No one could survive a fight like that. But, I know what you are, freak. And it just doesn't quite add up to me at all. It's like, okay, are mutants known? Are they not known? And in all these movies, like even in Spider-Man, when Peter Parker gets into a fist fight with Flash Thompson and he knocks him out, everyone's like, you're a freak. No, in real life, they'd be like, you kicked his ass. Good. In these movies, they always try to make the people that are super strong to be freaks. Whereas, I mean, unless he actually put his fist through his skull, you would just think, oh, he's just really strong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, we can nitpick all day long. I just think that the movie goes off the rails, and I respect it for trying to be realistic. But I think it's falling apart. What do you think, Brent?
I feel like, I think I really do appreciate how grounded they try to make the X-Men movie, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like this movie is also very ashamed of its comic book source material.
Good point.
I feel like it is. And like you talk about Rogue a lot, and I have so much to say about Rogue that I think she is both the strongest part of this film, but also the worst part of this film, like the most frustrating, because I mean, for anybody that knows the comics, Rogue's a badass.
Right. This Rogue is nothing like the comics.
This Rogue is nothing like the comics. Rogue's a badass. She flies. She's sassy. She's confident.
Yep.
But I have to say at the same time, as much as that sucks because of this kind of interpretation we have of Rogue, the themes that they lay out in this movie specifically about being different, that this is an allegory for, originally it was an allegory for the LGBT community because
Right.
the director is gay.
Right.
And so that's what he drew his perspective from about mutants and living in a world where there's people that, look down or differently at you because you're
Right.
something different. And I hate to say it, but as much as I don't want Rogue to be our into that world, she is also a genius way to get into that world, because even amongst the outcasts, even amongst the mutants, she is an outcast amongst the mutants, not just the world in general, but even
Sure.
within the X-Men, she feels isolated.
Sure.
So it's also very genius that they used her that way. It's just not what you want from Rogue, because we know
The thing is, though, sorry to interrupt, but
That's okay.
they could have easily done that with Rogue and had her stay truer
Yeah.
to what I'm learning is her actual personality. She didn't have to be mousy
Totally.
and passive. She
Yeah.
could have been a rebellious kid from the outset, and maybe that's why she takes this trip, because she's running away from home, and this could set up her later more accurate personality.
And that's the problem I have with not just this movie, but a lot of the X-Men movies, is they take these characters for granted. They take the brand of Rogue, and they give you something that's not Rogue, and they just cash in on that name value, which is
Right.
annoying. But
They made sure to get the hair, though.
They made sure to get the hair at the end. They're like, look, we did it right.
So, Josh, you came in sideways because you saw this movie after it was released.
Yeah.
So where do you put this in, like, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause,
Yeah,
like, you
so
can't-
I obviously loved it as a kid. It didn't bother me necessarily that they weren't in their costumes. I don't think. I think I was just too young to even think about that.
Sure.
But now it's not great. It's so in the middle. I think you were definitely right about where they got so much right, and the tone and the allegory and the characters just don't work.
No.
They don't feel like how they should.
They're paper thin.
Well,
Yeah.
The thing is, sorry.
I think that most of the X-Men cast feel like cardboard cutouts of
Yeah.
their characters, right? They're just kind of stand-ins for Storm or Cyclops. They're
Yes.
not doing anything in this movie. They're not adding anything. They don't even feel like they're characters.
And the thing is you have me, a comic book fan, who wants to see the comic book versions, and we don't quite get them. And then you have the cartoon fans who are similar, but you don't get the cartoon versions. And so you go, okay, to be fair, Ian, you haven't read the comics, but Wolverine's pretty close.
Professor X,
And
Magneto.
Professor X is pretty close. Magneto's pretty close. And then the rest, I'm not. Okay, look, I'm sorry. James Marsden as Cyclops, cardboard cutout, no personality. No, not even no personality, but almost no role. Almost no role in the story.
Yeah.
Halle Berry as Storm. What? She's supposed to become the leader of the X-Men. She is nothing in this story.
No.
She has no personality. She has no arc. Nothing. She says the worst quip in cinematic history. the lightning line, just garbage. And then Jean Grey's okay, but not great.
Have you noticed they make all of their female characters mousy? Storm's mousy in this. Rogue's
Okay,
mousy.
Storm is scared.
Yeah.
Oh my God! When the guy becomes a fish, she's scared and she runs out of the room. And then
Right.
Jean Grey's scared of what?
Cerebro. And it's Diet Pepsi poison that's
Right.
in there.
Yes. You're right. And I think it was, I don't know which one of you said that there were. Brent, you said they were ashamed of the comic book roots. How about Bryan Singer never read the comics?
And he banned them on set.
See,
That's
Interesting.
dumb.
he's kind of an idiot, right? He's kind of an idiot.
He's also just a terrible
he's
person.
also a big asshole. Yeah. he
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Possibly-
a sexual
possibly a-
predator.
yeah.
But okay, let's just put it this way. This taught me a lesson about Hollywood. I thought that whenever a movie was made, it was a crime. It was a crime. It was a passion project. And this reading up on all the backstory of this film made me realize this is not the case. I thought that if Bryan Singer's going to direct X-Men, it meant that he dreamt about making this his whole life. And he finally got the funds together. Like Michael Uslan, who used his spare money from his job as a teacher to buy the rights to Batman, and then 20 years later made the movie. No, Bryan Singer is a director who directed Usual Suspects, and he directed
Apt Pupil.
Apt Pupil.
Yeah.
And then his agent was like, okay, here's 5 new scripts that you can option, and here's one called X-Men. Oh, what's this? And like you said, he latched onto it because of the allegory for the gay community. And so because of that, that comes through, and there's heart, and there's like a real like he brings that to the project.
Yeah.
But other than that, as far as the X-Men,
and even that, I mean, it didn't really jump off the screen to me that's what it was like. There was some of that,
right?
But if his whole point is this allegory where this group of people is being marginalized, you have to show a little bit more of the people that are marginalizing them. I think
good point.
there was very,
Yeah.
very, very little of that. There was very
almost zero.
little of the normal people, with the exception of the senator and just some background characters.
You're totally right.
Everything was the mutants.
And there's
Totally
like little
right.
microaggressions, like when Cyclops is looking at the departure times on the train station, and that little kid is smiling at him, and the mom sees it and protects her child. There's
Right.
these little microaggressions, but it needs to be fleshed
that
out more.
that is
Yeah.
probably the strongest example in the entire film.
Yeah.
But
of
see, as a comics reader, you go, is she looking at him because he's a quote mutant or because he has these goggles on? Because
Yeah.
Cyclops in the comics would never wear those goggles. He would wear his red ruby,
yeah.
what are they called? Glasses.
I thought that was a poor tactical decision on his part.
Yes.
You're doing
Oh my
field work,
God.
Cyclops.
He's got like a baseball cap trying to hide his face, but he's got the
That's what I mean is you have a guy, okay, so he's never read the comics, he's never watched the cartoon. So Rogue is wrong, Cyclops is wrong, Storm is wrong, Jean Grey is kind of wrong. He lucked out. Okay, I'll give him credit for Hugh Jackman. Godsend. Like, such a great actor, right?
He is a good actor.
Yeah. And he's been doing Wolverine for like 25 years.
And I don't even
straight.
think that he was the first choice.
No,
like
Duke Gray
other-
Scott was.
Who was-
Duke Gray
yeah,
Scott.
and,
That's
and
right.
Russell Crowe.
And Russell Crowe.
Yeah, like
That's
Russell Crowe was like
right,
cast,
that's right,
and then there
yes.
was scheduling conflicts. So
So
like,
glad they didn't go with him because I don't like him. But whatever.
so yeah, it's a miracle that worked out, honestly, because he is great in this movie, and I think is the one. He's the actor that is putting the most into being the character that
True.
he's supposed to
Yeah.
be
almost to
portraying.
the point that it feels as though Hugh Jackman is in an entirely different movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think the script fails everybody else, though. That's the problem.
for sure. Yeah,
I think they don't give Cyclops or Storm anything to work
do.
with.
You're totally
Like-
right.
yeah,
You're totally
and
right.
he doesn't get anything to do in any of the movies that he's in.
Who?
James Marsden,
Oh, yeah.
Cyclops.
Oh.
Like they don't give him
Don't even
anything.
talk
gets-
about
It's
It's going to get
X3.
even more depressing as,
Yeah.
you go through the films
Yeah,
here, because
it's-
X3 is a terrible affront
Yeah.
to that
Oh
character.
My God.
Oh my
So
gosh.
We usually break down the actors. So we
Okay,
all love
yeah.
Hugh Jackman. We can agree he's great. Let's talk about my second favorite actor in the movie, which is Ian McKellen. He is
Fantastic.
so good.
My
And
goodness.
again, I've read at the time I had read 10 years of X-Men comics, and he exceeded my expectations. I thought he was so good. What do you think, Brent?
Oh, like he makes the words on that page come alive. Like he clearly he brings like a theatrical element to Magneto that's
Yes.
actually not that present in the comics.
Right.
Magneto in the comics is a little bit more militant.
Sure.
You know, a little bit jingoistic, I guess. Like this, they made him a little bit more, theatrical. But I think it works. It brings that soap opera element
Right.
to X-Men, which it is a soap opera.
Right.
And this movie doesn't really convey that well. But Magneto does have some amazing speeches. So Ian McKellen's a strong part of this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Ian, what do you think?
No, he was great. He was great.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of bright spots in this movie, but he was way up here. And I think that having both him and Patrick Stewart in this film was a very good decision. The interplay between those two, particularly the very end scene when Magneto's in prison,
Yeah. Great scene.
spectacular
Yeah.
scene.
I want a whole
Spectacular.
Very
movie just those two interacting.
Bickering.
Yeah.
They're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Although the movie did it confused me at the very beginning because I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who Magneto is until the movie tells me who Magneto is. So we see at the very beginning, Wolverine and Rogue are on the road, and who is it? The long-haired guy,
Sabretooth.
Sabretooth, attacks them, and they narrowly escape. And then Professor X is like, I don't know why Magneto wants you. So I'm
Right.
like, is that Magneto?
Yeah.
For the first 25 minutes of the movie,
Right,
I
right.
thought that Sabretooth was Magneto,
Sure,
and I didn't
right.
know who this old man was.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's more to talk about with that after, but Josh.
That whole intro is of the X-Men
Anticlimactic.
is rough.
Can I just say, if you're going to introduce a team of mutants, you don't have two guys, Cyclops and Storm. At least throw Jean Grey in there.
And
throw Iceman in there.
Give them something heroic to do. They unbuckle a seatbelt.
Grab their
Right? Like, they don't do anything.
No, but that's like, you realize this movie maybe gets the drama right. The action is shit.
Terrible.
Every action
Yeah.
scene is like, we're going to stand here in the cool, and then we're going to, okay, here, let me just click. Okay, unbuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And then they go to the train station. And then within 2 seconds, Toad
It's-
rips off his thing.
Yeah.
That is garbage.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, I don't know if we're still going through all the actors, but you brought up the train station.
Okay.
I actually think the train station whole sequence, aside from the action part, but the sequence at the train station, I think is the strongest part of the movie.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll
I
get to
kind of
that.
agree with you. Yeah,
I have a lot to say about that.
okay.
But let's keep on with the actors
Okay,
quick.
yeah, let's go to the
So we
actors,
talked
yeah.
about Ian McKellen.
Patrick Stewart?
Okay, listen. Patrick Stewart is a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, I think he's reading his lines. I think he's going, okay, what's the next line? Say it. Okay, what's the next line? Say it. Ian, I know you're a Patrick Stewart fan.
Yeah, he was fine, but he's not a fine actor. He is a transcendent actor. He doesn't do this. He does this.
Yes.
So when he shows up to a movie and does this, doesn't matter that he's kind of on the same level as half of the rest of the cast. It's a bit of a disappointment.
Right.
Now, again, I don't know how much he had to work with. When he's introducing everybody at the beginning, and it's 35 minutes of just exposition.
That's garbage.
This is so and so, also known as so
Oh,
and
that
so.
dialogue was so...
This is so and so, also
Also
known
known
as
as-
so and so.
It's rough.
That was
That's
so
rough
bad.
dialogue.
Up, my God!
That was garbage.
Do
yeah.
it literally any other
know.
way. Terrible. So if that's what they gave him, I don't blame him for just phoning
Yeah.
it in. What are these people called again? Oh, all right.
Well, because there's an actual interview with him where he's like, yeah, well, when I'm doing reading, I'm usually reading like Shakespeare, but for this movie, I had to read a stack of comic books. So he clearly
Wait, he
does
was
not-
allowed?
Oh, yeah, he doesn't even respect the material, which is fine. And I'm sure that doing these 7 movies didn't help, although one of them is good. But anyway, Josh, what'd you think of Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, in this movie, he is fine. I think that as time goes on, I feel like he feels more and more like Professor X. Like in...
Yeah.
Once we started getting into like the sequels and stuff like that, and I have always envisioned Professor X as British because of this movie. This is
Sure.
kind of like my first real introduction to X-Men. So, but I'm not sure that he's ever meant to be.
Well, technically,
In the comics,
he's
right?
not British, and in this movie, he's technically not British. He doesn't have. He has an American accent.
Does he?
I think it's like transatlantic.
Yeah, I think it's vaguely
Okay.
British.
Yeah.
You're right,
The
transatlantic.
school thing is canon, though, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
so, and Professor X is the headmaster
Oh,
of
yes,
the school.
yes.
So it tracks that he would be British, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
not in any other sense that it just seems that that's a
Sure.
British thing.
It's a British idea.
Yeah.
To be fair with the comics, Stanley and Jack Kirby created the X-Men, but Chris Claremont is the writer who made them what they were like 15 years later, and he's British ancestry. And I think he brought a little bit of that to the table. And one thing I have to point out about this movie, and Brent, you probably know this, but at this point in 1999, 2000, the school aspect of the comic was sidelined.
Totally. Yeah.
And this movie
Made it
this
come to the
movie-
forefront in the comics. Yes.
That's true. And because of this movie, Grant Morrison amped it up in his new X-Men comics, and also in the, I think, Ultimate Comics. So at this point, it was more like the cartoon. It was more just a bunch of superheroes fighting robots, right?
It's 4 students at his school, like Cyclops, Jean, Storm, and Beat. Like, that's
Yeah.
his school.
I know.
before.
And then those little
Yeah.
kids too. Yeah. It's
Well,
it's like they're
yeah.
the teachers, but it's not very clear. Yeah. It's a
But I'm saying before
In the
this movie, the
comics.
comics,
Yeah.
Oh, sure,
Xavier's
sure.
school was
yeah. It's literally like 5 people.
Yeah, that's what I
you're
mean.
Right. Yeah, I
and
get
then
your-
and
yeah.
then this movie came out and changed what that school could be.
Yes,
which I think
yes.
actually was a change for the better.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
I feel like too, if I were to change things and start over, I think I would start with just them And then by the third movie, you add the kids. You make them now the professors.
Yeah, there's growth there.
Yeah,
we can nitpick all day long, but I just gonna a little sidetrack. When they do the reboot by Marvel, the new one, I hope they start with the original 5. I hope they're teenagers. They probably won't be. It'll probably be Wolverine.
It'll probably be Hugh Jackman again.
It might be Hugh Jackman again, but it should be teenagers who grow up and then other people come along. In this movie, we start off with a 35-year-old Jean Grey and a 30-year-old Aurora Monroe.
And a 26-year-old Cyclops.
And a 30-year-old Wolverine. Okay, he can be old.
That whole thing sort of confused me a little bit, too. There's all these kids running around, but then there's these old people that are just here. Like, are you teachers?
They're supposed to be teachers.
It's
implied, like when Cyclops is talking about the motorbike and
during
wasn't implied quite enough.
No
monologue introducing everybody.
Okay, you haven't said anything about Patrick Stewart yet, right?
I think he's fine to mildly good. I think he's got some good scenes. I think his first scene with Magneto at the Senate hearing was pretty good, and I think his very last scene with Magneto in the plastic prison is good. It sets him up to be a more fleshed out character in X2.
Yeah.
I have to say, as much as I despise X3, he does get a lot of range in that movie. So it sets him up to be more dynamic later on. But he's pretty muted in this movie.
Okay, let's do a little sidetrack here. I think the biggest problem with this movie is it's sloppy as fuck. And this is what I mean, is like they have all these ideas and they just throw them all into the movie and they don't know what to focus on. And when I say focus, I'm going to use a literal example. Bryan Singer doesn't know what to shoot. So when Wolverine wakes up and then he chokes out Jean Grey and then he runs around in the compound, why do we have a close-up of him grabbing a sweater? Because when you're shooting a movie and you shoot a close-up of something, you're telling the audience it's important. Is it really that important that he grabs a sweater? Because he does it again when the guy becomes a fish man and comes out of the water, and the camera focuses on him coming out of the water. So now, okay, the point of the scene is that everyone's shocked. No, the point of the scene is that he's watching TV. And what's on the TV? No, the point of the scene is he grabs a sweater. It's just like sloppy. You know what I mean? What do you think, Brent?
No, I agree. I think he's still pretty in his infancy as a director at this point, and it shows. Like it's a very unfocused movie. There's a lot of stuff too at Magneto's lair, which I never really like appreciated in my past 40 rewatches of this film. But there's just a lot of odd shots going around there as well in this weird remote layer. So yeah, I think he's pretty unfocused with what he wants to tell the audience. And there's already a lot going on in this movie. There's supposed to be 10 main characters here, and some of them don't even get speaking lines. So it's just
Ian, what do you think of the directing?
Confusing.
Okay.
Confusing, scattershot. It was not cohesive at all. To go back to that scene that you're talking about, when Wolverine wakes up and chokes out Jean Grey, he's hearing voices from over here and over here. This is interesting. But then he's just randomly wandering around this hallway. It's like 1 second he's hiding, then the next second he runs over and he tries a door, and now he's hiding from children.
I know
it's incohesive. I don't know what he's trying to do. Are you hiding? Are you being brash? And it's a lot of weird camera angles, a lot of shots that are kind of set up but not really paid off. When the senator, for example, when he falls into the water, we don't see him fall.
Yeah.
We just see
the splash, like Wile E. Coyote. I know.
Yeah, like you couldn't take 2 seconds to, and I know that other films, I've kind of argued the opposite, where if you don't have an effect that's going to work, don't show the effect and just show the result. Yeah. But you've got some special effects here. You can show a guy falling. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't seem.
Well, I think too the reason why it doesn't work is they spend too much time with him being like held there, right? Like we have so many close-ups of like Sabretooth like reacting to it, and then the arm stretching, and then we cut back to his face, and then it's like lingering too long for it to be over like that.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
that's
I
a
think
good
a
point.
lot of that movie is like that, where like it's both a very like tight movie where everything just is so quick, but also like some of the scenes just last too long. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to add necessarily more scenes to the movie, but I also
Other weird
wish
shit
we were
like
focusing on different things.
when Storm was fighting Magneto. Was it Toad? Yeah, it was Toad in the Statue of Liberty, or there was somewhere where there was an elevator, and Storm was more or less helpless, and she just got kicked into the elevator.
Yeah.
But then 10 seconds later, she comes out of the elevator, and now she's a total badass, using all this lightning power, and she ends up winning the fight. Like, why didn't you do that at the beginning?
No,
Like,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to defend it in one respect, in that it seems like Bryan Singer, he set out not to make an action movie. He set out to make a drama. So he's going to treat these like real people. But if you're going to treat them like real people, why are you giving them this Blackbird jet and giving them these cool costumes that either are superheroes or they're not? So if you're going to go into a fight, they either should know what they're doing or they shouldn't. But like you said, Ian, she gets choked out and she's scared and she's helpless. But then 2 seconds later, she can control lightning. Well, if she can control lightning, she should have done it right away, because it just doesn't add up. And going back to the sloppiness, I think one thing, a huge weakness in this film is that and it's a fantasy. In any fantasy, there should only be one fantastic element. In this movie, it's that there's mutants. So why do you set it, quote, in the not too distant future? I think that sets it off the rails from the beginning. Why is it in the future? Why not just make it normal? Why is Professor X rolling around in this weird futuristic wheelchair? Why doesn't he have a regular wheelchair?
I assumed that it just meant in the future from World War II.
I was going to say Alcatraz, but I meant Auschwitz.
In the not too distant future from 1999. That's what it meant. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes.
I don't know why I didn't take it like that.
Yeah, it's pointless.
I think I always took it to be ambiguous, as like this could be happening. And like even if you watched it today, it could be the not too distant. I mean, there's the Twin Towers in the background, which kind of dates it. There's some like real world references that.
We don't need to know when it is
They
at
shouldn't
all.
put that.
though.
They shouldn't put that at
right?
all.
Like, 'cause like we can tell when we've switched from 1930s Poland to Midwestern United States, just by everything being nice and clean and
you
bright.
Didn't need it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is then on top of that, someone mentioned Magneto's lair. I think it was you, Ian. Why does he have this weird hideout in this cave? Like again. Every superhero has its own style. Batman is Batman. Superman. What is X-Men? Is X-Men a guy in a rock lair with like a rock desk with these little balls that like my cousin has? Like that's the best you can come up with. You can get those at the dollar store, right? And then Cyclops has this stupid motorcycle
that goes really, really fast.
That he's
has
never used.
Nothing to do with the comics. That he
I don't
never
believe
uses.
that man has driven
Wolverine
a
uses it
motorcycle.
twice, though.
Wolverine uses it twice. This is not X-Men. X-Men do not have cool vehicles. Yes, they have a jet, but they're not Batman. Like Batman has a bat plane and a Batmobile and a Batcopter.
So the motorcycle, to revisit that for 1 second, is not canon. It's
nothing
not
to do with the comics. Zero. Zero before 2000.
Okay, maybe before 2000.
Yeah,
I'm like,
zero.
That's what I mean.
They
Yeah.
get some gadgets
If it
later
inspired
on.
some,
and if they have gadgets, it's not like a part of their characters.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Like it's not his thing where Cyclops has a motorcycle.
It's like-
Right.
Honestly,
well,
it
Beast
feels
is
more
pretty gadgety.
Sure.
Yeah, but he's an inventor. Okay, let me just put it this way.
Beast is not in the movie though. So
Yeah,
it's like-
exactly. But let's just put it this way. It's like they had this extra money. What are we gonna do with this money? If these characters, like the Brotherhood of Mutants, if they were headquartered in Meteor, that would be more interesting. Not just cheaper, but it's like, where are these guys? Oh, they're just in a bar. They're like, you know those movies, like those mafia movies where it's like, oh, it's a pool hall, but in the back we've got these guys that are running the local mob. That's more interesting than what we saw here. I'd rather see a movie where you go to a restaurant or a bar.
Yeah.
And in the back, Magneto's headquarters is in the back room. That's way more interesting than
What's
that.
the city that, like the mutant city? What's it called?
Oh, in the
Krakoa?
comics.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Why-
like the newer era.
Is that new?
Krakoa?
Well,
Yeah.
what's
Oh,
you
okay.
talking about the island? That,
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
Muir Island. There's Krakoa. I don't know.
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
go to a lot
Like,
of places. This
why
one.
not even just call
That.
it that?
Yeah, just
like you don't.
but
You could keep it the
go to
same,
Singapore
and then
just call it that.
or Genosha.
Genosha.
That's the major one.
Yeah, just go to a real city because when
or like talk about wanting to build the city there. Like this is the beginning of this new place that I am building for mutant kind.
something.
It does come up in a later film, Dark Phoenix. They try that. They try. I know the one thing they tried that's different. I agree. I think actually your point about it being in a restaurant would actually make the movie even more grounded, which this movie clearly sets out to try and do instead of some sort of cheap supervillain layer.
Right.
That actually feels pretty out of place for what this movie's
Very
trying
out
to
of
do.
place. Right.
I'm trying to think. I think they bring up Genosha in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Madripoor. They bring up
The point is, though,
Madripoor.
it's not in this movie. Yeah. It's just the movie. It doesn't know what it wants to be. And then okay. Again, we talked about Batman. Like Tim Burton he knows his style. Even Joel Schumacher knows what he's doing. He's got his neon. He's got his bat nipples. Okay, fine. In this movie, what is the style of the X-Men? They have black leather suits. It's the Matrix.
Yeah, I can't.
And then what's with with the X, like the doors closing and like Cerebro, this big round room. There's no style. There's no style.
I actually love what they did with Cerebro in this movie. I thought they
I
elevated it from the comics. It's just like in a.
It's like a desk.
It's a desk.
It's like Ian. You know your desk. That's Cerebro.
I like the way they elevated
with a helmet.
it in the film.
It's like they took the helmet off a desk and they put it on their head.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like a mixing board. But I kind of like that because I'm used to that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Obviously, they have to do something.
Yeah.
I just wish they gave it more style. Like more, it's just black. Everything's black and gray in this movie.
Because it's afraid to take chances.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like you said about being afraid of, embarrassed of the source material.
It is.
Okay, fine. You're going to change their outfits, but do they all have to be black, and black, right?
Yeah, I think I don't hate the style of like the headquarters in the basement.
Okay.
I just wish that it felt like there was a reason for everything being blank. Like it's like a blank hallway with a bunch of empty rooms surrounding it. Like even the science lab is like an empty room
that wasn't fleshed
with like a little
out at all.
table. Yeah, I don't mind the sterile kind of feeling because it kind of like plays against the mansion and how like old it feels and lived in and real. So this kind of like it's fun, but it's just not fleshed out enough.
Well, it would have helped if there was ever anyone aside from the primary cast down there.
Right.
Like half the time it's just one or two people wandering around this big empty hallway. Why not have some other people that we don't know and aren't introduced to, but that we can tell are just doing some work, right? People in lab coats running around, open some of these doors so we can see that there's a lab in there.
Or just have them doing stuff in there that makes sense.
Well,
yeah.
Also, we just reviewed Star Wars last week, and Han Solo, like there's a character in every good fantasy that is kind of the stand-in for the audience, and Han Solo is probably the best one. And in this movie's confused. Is it Rogue or is it Wolverine? Right? They don't know who to go with.
I think about that a lot with this film because they're trying to tell two major outsider perspectives.
Yes.
And I think what they want with Wolverine is they want him to be our eyes into this not new world, but this world of mutants.
New world for him, yes.
New world for him, but also we're getting introduced to it as well. And I agree with you with the Rogue piece. They're kind of conflating it, but Rogue is a very important part of this movie, and there's a lot of emotional weight to her character, but they also don't. They try to make us go through her perspective as well, and it is confusing. Yeah, I agree with you.
Right, and go ahead.
To go back to like what you were saying earlier too, with the train scene being the best.
I think it is,
and I think that it would have been the best if we got to see the two of them struggling together, or even like Rogue and Wolverine, right? Because in that scene, they have their heart-to-heart in the train.
Which was pretty good.
Wolverine kind of concedes and is like, "This is actually a good place. Like they're here to help people. As much as I'd hate to admit it, this is probably a good place for you to be." And they have that heart-to-heart, and I think it's acted really well. It's shot nice, like it's
good dialogue.
But I think,
good, yeah.
but I think the lead up to it isn't enough for that payoff. You know, like
They needed more scenes together to sell that relationship.
Right.
Rogue and Wolverine. Yes. Well, you do get like the stabbing through the chest, but you needed more happy times before that, or something to say like, well, we're outsiders here. How do you feel about this? Or
Well, okay, so Ian, you raised a really good point about showing other people in the mansion, okay? And here's the thing about like writing, okay? It's like there's plotting a movie is one thing and the dialogue is another, but there's this other weird aspect where you kind of sit back and you go, like, okay, we're doing an action movie, but the action sucks. There's another part of it where you go, we have 10 characters and only 3 of them have lines. Like that's an actual thing where you kind of have to go, maybe we should rewrite this. And what you said is another interesting thing where it's a weird thing about writing where you're writing black ink on a page or typing or writing or whatever, but it's hard to imagine yourself in that scenario. So it's almost not until you see the movie where you go, wait a minute, there's all these kids in the mansion. Why don't we show them in here? Or show other characters, or show something, or show like, because here's the thing: is the contrast between the mansion and the sterility of the labs is interesting, but it's like I want it to be. It could just be like this is practically Willishead Manor. It's an old Victorian style mansion, and then we could have had. It didn't have to be high budget lab. It could have been a regular lab, but just to show the contrast, like it's almost like open a secret door and walk in. It would have just been cool to show like this secret room where this is the surface that the public sees, and then back here are these cool rooms, but everything's so disjointed that it almost loses its effect. You know what I mean? Because you're not seeing the normal world inside this world. You're seeing a bunch of supermodels, which we'll talk about later. All the actors were they're literally models, all of them. It seemed like they were cast for the looks first. Like Halle Berry was a model, I think. Famke Jensen, model. James Marsden, probably a model.
I think he was a model.
Right.
Rebecca Romaine.
Rebecca Romaine,
yeah.
model. What's the actor that played Darth Maul?
Ray Park.
He's a
stunt.
he's a
Just a
stunt
stunt
man.
guy. Yeah.
So
shows.
do we have
Stunt model.
do we have any? Okay, so then we have 2 Shakespearean actors.
Tyler
and an
Mane,
unknown.
Sabretooth was a wrestler.
Like I'm sorry, are you joking? We have 2 Shakespearean actors. Who, by the way, Patrick Stewart only really got the job because the fans wanted him to. Did you know that? They campaigned.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that's why he got the job, but that's why he was
Sure, it helps.
positioned. And then he basically said, well, if I'm going to do it, I want my best friend, Ian McKellen. Okay, fine. Well, you can play Magneto. And then we'll get this unknown to play Hugh Jackman, which was a fluke that he was so good. So it's almost like, and then, okay, then we forgot about Anna Paquin. She'd already won Best Actress or Supporting Actress. Okay, she's a real actress.
The girl can act.
Yeah, she's a good actress. So we have 1 actress, we have an unknown, we have 2 Shakespearean actors, and then a bunch of models and wrestlers. Like, come on, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, on this podcast, we reviewed all these TV pilots and failed movies. I think this movie is like on the level of like Human Target, but a little bit better.
Oh no! Come on.
A little bit better than Human Target.
No.
Okay.
I don't think it's that bad. But I think to your point, because so Sabretooth being a wrestler, I think is fine.
Who I met at Chatham Kent Comic Con. But go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah. I know he's big.
I don't have a problem with that at all because he's not really a character like Cyclops should be a character, right?
He could be a character. If
He
they get a
could
better
be,
actor.
but I'm fine with it not. Like, I'm fine with him just being this, like, muscle henchman.
Okay.
And if you're casting for presence, then that's fine. But
Even when
Cyclops,
he growls, all
They overdubbed the same sound effect they used for Gene Simmons in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. But anyway, go ahead, Josh.
Cyclops and Storm should not be just like eye candy. They shouldn't just be stand-ins for our X-Men.
I don't think
actors.
that's an affront though on Halle Berry or James Marsden. I think actually James Marsden's pretty talented. I think it's the material he's given.
I think you're right. He's
100%.
he's come to be revealed to be good, but in this movie, you're like, he
doesn't do anything.
No.
Yeah, like that's
and he's pretty green as an actor here.
Yeah.
So.
It'd be a different matter if he was given something and he fucked it up.
right.
Yeah. He wasn't given a chance to screw up because there's nothing of substance for him to do. Yeah.
Okay, again, let's talk about you've written the script. Okay, here's draft 1, guys. You have 3 scenes of people in beds. You have Senator Kelly laying in a bed for 20 minutes.
Yep.
Then 2 seconds later, Mystique sabotages Cerebro with Diet Pepsi, I think you said. And now Professor X is in a bed. And now we have to look at another character in a bed. And we have to hear speeches about, oh, you taught me everything I know and all this other bullshit. And then later on, we get Wolverine in a bed.
Yeah, twice.
And it's
Yeah.
like, again,
maybe 3 times,
Starts in a
honestly.
bed,
as
ends
a
in a bed.
yeah, you're right. As a rewrite,
3
you go,
times.
Yeah.
you got too many people laying in beds. Here's the other thing. Mystique sabotages Cerebro. It's kind of a cool scene. Then Professor X, goes crazy, and it's melodramatic.
Such a lazy way to get him out of the finale, though, because he could have
It's so
just shut
stupid.
down Magneto like
Oh
that
my
with his
God.
mind.
But also, why did they have to have that as part of the plot? Why? So that he would be sidelined, so that Jean Grey would then try, which is kind of interesting. Like, oh, she's going to defy what he said, and she's going to try, but then she just finds out, oh, I know where Magneto is. But if they would have just cut out all that other shit, then Professor X would have found out where Magneto is. So it's just like, it's not like it changed the direction. It just, it was like a little sidetrack and then brought it right back to where it would have gone anyway.
I think its intent truly was to get Xavier out of the final act because he's too overpowered.
Too powerful.
Like,
Okay.
I think that was the intent of it, which is not good writing.
We had this huge debate on the show about crossovers and mixing like superheroes, Superman mixed with Batman, and in varying degrees of power levels. It was not until I saw this movie, even though I'd read 200 X-Men comics, maybe the villain of the X-Men should not be able to control metal, considering the most popular character, Skeleton, is made out of metal. It kind of ruins every single encounter they have when the main bad guy can just hold his hand up and freeze Wolverine. You know how fucking stupid that is? Like, and this is what I mean, is that if I were to rewrite this movie, I would say, oh, Magneto's sphere of influence is literally 10 feet or something, to give him a limitation. But the fact that he can just look, like in the future movies, like even Days of Future Past, he sends him flying up into the sky and then drowns him. And sorry, Ian, spoiler, but it's just like the fact that he can directly
I think that's the issue with Wolverine being the main character,
I
too.
agree. That's the problem.
Right? Because we don't really have that problem with any of the other characters,
True,
right?
true.
Like Cyclops' glasses can be plastic. Like we don't need to have
Storm
metal
could zap
in it.
him. Jean could do something.
And if he uses his powers to take off the glasses, then he makes something that prevents that. Like
Sure.
So Wolverine kind of
Ruins everything.
Yeah.
But this is the scene. Okay,
Unfortunately.
the scene in the train that you liked.
I do like
Okay,
it. Yeah.
I think that is the reveals it betrays the problem of Wolverine just being suspended there in midair. It's like, oh, he's useless. He's the star of the movie and he's useless. And by the way, as far as the comics go, aren't his adamantium's unbreakable? How can Magneto bend adamantium this way and that way? Even when I saw it in the theater, I was like, that is fucking stupid.
How dare they?
How dare they? But that's just
were they being? I had assumed
they
it
were
was
bent
just
a lot.
they were like. I know what you're saying. Were they bent at the joint or were they actually?
Yeah,
bent?
that's
I think
what
they
it
were
felt
bent.
like. Oh,
but
okay.
I could be wrong.
But I mean,
Yeah.
he does. This is a spoiler for the comics. He does take all the adamantium out of Wolverine, though, in Fatal Attractions.
Yeah, but then he
So-
gets it back later.
But he's manipulating it.
Sure,
You know what
I'm just
mean?
saying.
Yeah.
I think Wolverine works better with no adamantium skeleton, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
For another
So,
podcast. Yeah.
It makes him more interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Imagine in a different movie where Wolverine is having an issue being a part of a team,
Okay.
and then realizing the bad guy, like he's hopeless against the bad guy, so he has to work with the team to save everybody. I don't think that's bad.
That would have
I
been
think
a great Band-Aid for what they gave us. Or
Right.
not-
Yeah.
Like a great solution.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need to rely on you guys to help me be sick. I mean, he kind of
There you
did
go.
that.
You
But-
write yourself into a corner like that. Write yourself out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yourself, make him realize he has to be part of the team.
Is-
He
is-
kind of does it in the
little
Statue
bit.
of Liberty, but it's not spectacular.
No.
Um,
No.
Not a good payoff.
I think there's there's a lot of there's one more thing I want to talk about. Again, I respect Bryan Singer and the writers for trying to make this a drama, but the action falls flat. We talked about
Action sucks.
Okay, let's be clear. The worst thing about this movie, you talked about if an effect doesn't work, you don't show it or you cut away. And this was the first movie where I noticed they hold on things way too long. when I think it's Sabretooth gets blasted with the optic blast.
Oh man.
Okay, there's such a thing as gravity, and like he gets knocked and he flies through the air, but then the camera is underneath him, and we can see he hits the end of his arc and then just keeps flying. Like, just editor cut.
And this
right?
it's like 8 seconds,
Right.
Which doesn't sound like a long time, but when
Yeah.
you're watching someone fly like this, it's like
it's bad, and it happens a couple times in this movie where you can clearly see the people are just being pulled along by ropes.
Well,
or whatever.
Storm rising out of the elevator. The
Yeah.
wire work is not
It's
great.
terrible. Yeah,
I just think how Storm or Magneto would look flying now in 2025 versus what we
Sure.
saw. Like, it's just so rigid and stiff, and it kind of takes you out of it a little bit.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
It's rough, and that's what I mean. It's almost like what I don't know quite what they were going for, but they needed someone in there to fix it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that even some of the like special effects don't hold up at times.
Right. I don't think they held up in 2000. Like in 2000, I
Ooh.
noticed the wire work.
That even like when Wolverine is fighting Sabretooth on top of the Statue of Liberty, and Wolverine uses his claws to
Oh my!
like
and the
whip
camera
around.
whips around.
It's like
That
an
was-
edgelord wrote that
That was
scene.
rough.
brutal. That
Let's
was
have
brutal.
Wolverine
I
fight
couldn't even
Sabretooth.
figure out the physics of that
I know.
scene. Like, how
I
did he
know.
get back on top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was like anchoring himself, but
Yeah.
it didn't look that way. It was bad.
But-
it was an attempt at something that failed. but
I think
whatever.
that the practical effects are strong at times in this movie, though. Like the Magneto ripping the train apart is all
Yeah. It was
practical
pretty good.
and
It's
is
awesome.
really
Good.
fun.
and
Yeah.
also the follow-up scene where he's pointing all the guns at the cops.
I really like
Okay,
that scene.
that
That's
was-
I'm
that
counting that
was
as
good.
part of the train scene, by the way.
Okay.
That whole
Okay,
sequence
okay.
from Rogue trying to take off to them taking off with Rogue's body.
That was really good.
I think that's the strongest part of the movie.
Okay, I'm going to give you 3 moments in the movie where I was surprised. Like, obviously, in 2000, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
One of them was the part where they're walking out, and then Sabretooth grabs Magneto by the throat. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like,
That's
"What?"
what I'm saying.
That's good writing.
That's good
because
writing.
The audience is like, "What the? Oh, that's smart writing. That's smart." And then there was 2 more, and I was gonna try and remember them, but I can't remember. But there was brief moments like that. But there should have been 100.
I know.
But there was only 3. There was
Yeah.
only like 3 where you're like, oh, I know. One of the other ones was Storm is Zap's Toad, and then Storm walks into the middle of the fight between Wolverine and Mystique. So you think, oh, this is Storm. But it's not. It's
It's not,
Mystique.
yeah.
That's clever because the audience is tricked too. It was good. There was one other moment in the movie where I was like, they were ahead of me. That's what I think the word I'm looking for. They were
Wait,
ahead of
are
me.
you talking about the scene where Wolverine stabs
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mystique.
Mystique, but it's
Yeah.
actually Storm? How did he know that was
He can
Mystique?
smell.
Because
You can smell.
you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
smell
he
his
has
scent.
super sense.
Was that set up?
Yes.
Yeah, it was,
showed,
yeah.
remember the first time when they're driving in the truck?
Yeah, and he's like,
They show a close up. He's like, and he looks around, and he's like, and he knows that Sabretooth is there because he can smell his scent. And then when they walk into the Statue of
I
Liberty,
was gonna
like
say there's another moment
yeah,
too. Yeah.
because remember when Mystique is disguised as the Statue of Liberty,
He can smell
like,
her.
statue.
Yeah.
He like smells. He's like, something is here. Someone's here, but I can't tell where they are.
okay, I remember
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
it didn't exactly, it wasn't too apparent to me that
Apparent?
that's what it was.
It's also not a very interesting power, I feel
I
like.
don't
So
know.
they don't spend too much.
they
I
don't
personally-
use it well. Like
Here's
they
the
don't
thing.
show
I
it.
personally, I've never liked Wolverine's metal skeleton. I think it's way cooler that he has senses like a dog or a canine or whatever. You know, I think that's interesting.
Fair enough.
You know, he can smell and he can. That's it. Smell.
I can smell too. It doesn't make me super.
Yeah. But those are the only ones I can remember. But I think that's the key. Is like you always want the writers to be ahead of you.
Yeah.
But in this movie, I feel like they're behind.
For a moment, I was fooled with Bobby telling Rose.
Sure.
Yeah,
The first
for a
time,
moment,
yeah,
for a
yeah.
moment, I was like,
was pretty good.
and then I remembered, like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I remember what's
So
going
there-
on.
It was okay. Sorry to
Oh, no, it's
interrupt.
okay.
But that scene, I was rolling my eyes at that scene because I thought that was just how they wrote that kid.
Bobby, right,
And I
yeah.
thought, this is
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah.
They're not going to turn on her that quick. I don't know.
I will.
So, good, but
I will say though, I think I was talking to Josh about this earlier. One thing I do hate the silent henchman trope that these movies are guilty of, but I do like that they make Mystique into a trickster a bit. Like she's deceptive. You know, she's she sabotages Cerebro. She manipulates Rogue. She does some kind of interesting, and she's silent, but she's mysterious. And I think the silent part actually works for her as a trickster.
Sure.
I hate how they diminish the Brotherhood of Mutants to
4 people.
To 4 people, and there is some sort of like familiarity between them. You can tell, like when Toad is pestering Sabretooth a couple times in the movie.
Quit playing around.
Or like, weren't you supposed to bring somebody back with you?
Somehow he's the most interesting character, right?
There's a little bit of jest there.
Yes.
And I'm like, my goodness, like if you just let them breathe a little bit more, this would be great. But also as a counterpoint, I think what the movie is trying to do, I'm giving Bryan Singer too much grace here.
Probably.
Maybe, is that I feel like by specifically holding back on Toad, Sabretooth, and Magneto, not showing the audience a lot about them and their personalities makes them scarier, which plays into the theme of us versus them.
Yeah, I think it works for Mystique.
I personally think you're giving him too much credit. I don't think he was thinking that.
Well, that's the takeaway I'm going to have from it.
Okay.
That's fair. I think it works for Mystique.
It works for Mystique.
For sure, because we don't really know a lot about her personality, and she could be anybody and anywhere. Like that, I think works in favor of her character.
In fact, I'd say that it probably works, like it would work better for her to have her quiet than it would be to have her chatty.
That would probably make her less interesting, actually. Yeah.
As we kind of saw an example of later on.
We were talking X-Men movies. When she turns into Jennifer Lawrence, all bets are off.
Yeah. These movies are going to be interesting for you, Ian, because you're going to see them all, like how the franchise evolves. It's so much crap thrown at a wall.
And sometimes, like
some of it sticks.
X-Men 2 is quite good, and so is Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
But when it's bad, it's bad.
It's Days of Future Past is the best.
Yeah, Days of Future Past is good. Yeah.
If this movie came out in 2019, right? In the height of the MCU, right? Would this be more colorful, or end up feeling cliche and just part of just what they came up with?
I think it all depends on who has it, right? Like I think this same director, these same actors, like it wouldn't work today if it was dark. But in somebody else's hands, like James Gunn, for example, like what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy and bringing in these characters that are like nothing characters, really. Like before those movies came out, nobody knew who Star-Lord or Groot or Rocket Raccoon. Like no. So, but with the right writing, you make them a family. Like you make the Guardians of the Galaxy are more of a unit than the X-Men have ever been in any of the movies that have come out.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And it's a tree and a talking raccoon, and it works better. You know what I mean? Like so it definitely, I think, all depends on the creative team behind it and bringing in somebody who actually cares about the story that they're telling.
I'm just
the characters.
Like we talked about Blade, we reviewed Blade, and I think the biggest difference between Blade and a 2025 Marvel film that we were shocked by was how good the structure was and the story. We were shocked, even though the tone was a little bit too serious, took itself a little bit too seriously. I think that compared to what we have now, it was shockingly strong. This film, I think, is shockingly weak, the structure. I think the tone is good, but I just think that this plot could not get past draft 1 in 2025. I think they would have gone, no, we've got to rework this. What do you think?
Yeah, now that you're talking about the plot structure, like we haven't even touched upon how absurd Magneto's machine is.
No. Oh, okay.
Because you're right, the plot's rough. And I have a fun story for you that you would appreciate.
Sure.
Did you know this whole getting Rogue up in the machine was decided by Bryan Singer as he was pissing at a urinal in the writer's room?
That makes total sense.
Well,
okay, no, why?
yeah, like-
How's that possible?
Take inspiration where you find it.
Like, how did Magneto know about Rogue? Like, how did he know about her? Like, yes, that's who I'm going to use.
Good point.
Stupid.
Good point.
It's dumb. So yeah, it's a weak structure. You're right. The tone is good though.
Yeah.
But the plot is weak.
Okay, the other thing I heard was that Bryan Singer, I think his driver, he found out that this could be bullshit. He found out that Bryan Singer was directing X-Men, and the driver kept giving him ideas. And Bryan Singer was like, yeah, why don't you write it then? And he did.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. He wrote like a draft of it. Yeah, this is what I heard. I don't know how accurate it is. Yeah, but like one of these guys is like a nobody that was probably like me, trying to like an intern in Hollywood. Yeah, and he's like, why don't you write it then? Like that's how thrown together this movie is. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it needed a rewrite, 100%.
It needed a rewrite.
It needed an initial right.
Yeah.
Well,
there is an initial right. It's just that we didn't see it.
It's interesting that like here we are. We've reset the camera twice, and we haven't even talked about the plot. This is the first we've even mentioned the plot because it is so weak. It's like we didn't even notice.
Okay, I the trope of Mr. Freeze. I'm gonna freeze Gotham. I've always said I hated that. In this movie, they do the same thing. What is the plot of a villain? I'm going to turn everybody into a mutant. Do you know how fucking stupid that is? That's just as stupid as the lizard. I'm going to turn everyone in the world into a lizard. That's my, stupid. No one does that. It doesn't. It's so, okay, first of all, not only is it stupid, not only is it unrealistic, it actually breaks the rules of the comics. Yeah. Someone is only a mutant from birth.
If you
see, this is why Josh is on the show. Yeah. If you get your powers later than that, you're a mutate. So I'm going to turn the world into a bunch of mutates. It doesn't have the same ring to it, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's stupid.
Well, I think again, it sounds like I'm defending this because I'm not. I think it's misguided, but I think what they were trying to do was they're trying, like, because of all the persecution Magneto faced in the past as a Polish person,
sure,
and then being a mutant, it was.
Well, as a Jew, he was a Jew, right?
Polish Jew. And then as a mutant, I think what they were trying to do with this plot line, again, I didn't say they're doing it well, is that he was trying to make everybody a mutant to avoid persecution or to make them feel how he felt. I'm not sure what the intent was with that.
Right.
And I wish that was explored a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Was he trying to turn the tables, or was he trying to get sympathy?
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
It's simplistic, very simplistic motivation.
Yeah, it probably could have been really awesome if it was explored more through like his trauma and like why he's doing this.
Sure,
but it's very
Well, and that's what I mean about like the idea of opening up the Holocaust is because that is in the comics. Like Magneto as a survivor is in the comics, but it's like if you're gonna go to that level, you've gotta kind of earn it, and they don't. The rest of the movie does not earn it, I don't think, at all. Future movies kind of do, but not this movie at all. Right?
Yeah.
But the Holocaust thing isn't even touched on again until you just see a shot of his tattoo.
It should have been explored a little bit more about how it affected. Again, we're only talking about X-Men. First Class explores it in much greater detail, and I would argue to much greater success.
I agree, 100%.
So that's
Plus Kevin Bacon. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that movie. Is there anything else, Ian, would you like to say about this movie? Like, okay, you're not an X-Men reader.
No.
Is this going to make you want to read X-Men comic books?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I mean, like, I'm not going to read comic books regardless. It's not going to turn me off of anything either, because I can see it for what it is, which is just a flawed movie. It doesn't, like, as we're talking about, the source material doesn't really factor in nearly to the degree that it should, nearly to the degree that would have made it successful. But it's more interesting to me as just a failed film.
Sure.
In terms of how it is constructed and how it is shot and how it is edited, how it is written. My God, that scene where the senator is tied up and Toad eats the bird and he goes, ugh. What is this a comedy now for 1 second?
I know.
What? Pick a tone and stick to it.
What was the point of that? I know.
Cut out this superfluous nonsense and use some of that energy on telling us the motivations of the villain, like why he wants to turn everyone into mutants instead of Toad eats a bird.
And also stage that scene in a completely different environment, not this black cave.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think? I mean, is it a successful adaptation of the X-Men?
No, I don't think so, because I think that some of the things like the allegory work well, and I think, but I think if that weren't there, then it wouldn't be an X-Men movie at all, right? It would be so far gone that they could call it anything else and it would work. I think what's really missing is that like sense of family, and teamwork. Like it just feels they might as well have called it Wolverine.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
It doesn't feel like an X-Men movie at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Brent, what do you think?
Well, I was telling Josh just after it finished that it's both better and worse than I remembered.
Sure.
Because I feel like the allegory works. They could have gone further with it, but I think I definitely picked up and I related to the allegory of feeling outcast in society and how mutants are treated. I do think they could have gone further with it, but there is some good writing around that, especially with Rogue in the train to Wolverine. Excellent writing.
Sure.
And some of those bookended scenes with Xavier and Magneto about, big picture, what does this mean for us as a race? There's some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah.
But as an X-Men film, this is not an X-Men film. This is a bunch of cardboard people that live at a mansion together that, jump at Wolverine's beck and call.
Yep.
That's the problem with this film, and all the other films subsequently suffer from it, is it's Wolverine and friends.
Yep.
It gets worse. It gets much worse.
Right.
So it's not a good X-Men movie. It's a good movie, I think, about it's a passable drama about persecution with fantastical elements, but it's not a good X-Men movie.
And because we've watched so many failed pilots, that's what I categorize it as a failed pilot for a movie series. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But guess what? We're going to be reviewing more X-Men movies, I think. Because how many other? 9, 10, 11?
Quite a few.
There's
of them.
Quite a
9,
few
I think.
X-Men films, Ian. So we're going to be talking about all of them. But we want to thank Ian for screening X-Men 1 at Meteor. Just like he screens a movie every week, right?
Yeah, sometimes they're even good movies.
Sometimes they're good, not often. No. We got some good ones. We did Star Wars. Coming up, we've got Paprika.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we got?
The Specials.
The Specials.
James Gunn.
Yes. Plus a few other ones, surprise ones we can't reveal just yet. We want to thank Brent for joining us.
Harvey Brent,
Harvey
too.
Brent. Oh my God, I gave away your secret identity. Harvey Brent, thank you, and hopefully we can have you back again.
Sure, yeah.
It'll be a good time.
Be awesome.
And Josh, why don't you tell everybody where you can find our episodes?
Yeah, you can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can also find the video format versions on our YouTube channel, so check us out there. Let us know what you guys think about X-Men 2000.
Until the next time, see you later.